Number 15, 1 to 41. So it talks about how there are like free will offerings and how they need to prepare those offerings. And it talked about how everyone who are native born must do this thing, and foreigners also the community is to have the same rules for the Israelite as for the foreigner, and them and the foreigner shall be the same before the Lord. So it's kind of like there is a spirit of pride that crept in, where eventually the Israelites consider like there are Gentiles and there are Israelites, and Israelites look down on the Gentiles. But from reading the Bible, it wasn't the case in the first place. There are foreigners living with them, but the same laws and regulation apply, and God even said that the Israelite and the foreigner will be the same before the Lord. So this is something that stood out to me today. And then it talks about how if they unintentionally sin, there's a difference between individual and unintentional sin and a community of who is unintentionally sinning. And so God let them know and that there are sin offerings for that. But if anyone who sins defiantly, then they must be cut off from the people, and their guilt remains on them. It's also interesting that there is a way to make one sin on behalf of a whole community, or one sin for an individual person. So God, God does it both ways. And I think the way that Jesus made the sin for us is that he is one sin offering who make atonement for the whole everyone in the world, past, present, and future. So that's a way that God does his work. And that there was a man who, I guess, despised the Sabbath law, and he was working. He was trying to gather wood on the Sabbath day. And it's interesting that they kept him in custody because it was not clear what should be done to him. So there is some time needed to seek the Lord for God's answer. It's not like God is always there and speaking to them. So there is a period of waiting on the Lord for his judgment, and his judgment was that that man needed to be taken away outside of the camp and stoned to death. And I think that follows what the previous section was saying about him. I think he knows that he should not be gathering wood, or he knows that he should be keeping the Sabbath holy, because that was in the 10 Commandments, and God repeated it a few times. And I think that his act is an act of defiance, where he intentionally and willingly ignore the command of God. And at that time, it's not to be, even now, it's not supposed to be taken lightly. But at that time, particularly when the nation is so young, where discipline is needed so that other people doesn't go off and do their own thing and follow suit, I think that's why he was put to death. And that they are to make tassels on the corners of their garment, so that they will remember God's command and be consecrated to God, and that they should remember the command of God, so that they won't chase after their lusts of their hearts and of their eyes. And then God re-emphasized that God is the God who brought them out of Egypt and their Lord.